Who's scruffy looking?
Welcome back to the Talking with My Hans channel, everybody. We got another special fan-terviews episode. I know I say that every single episode, but I swear to you, this one's going to be a lot of fun. I have a really special guest. Honestly, this is someone that I've wanted to have on this show for a long time. Finally got up enough courage to ask him, and he was gracious enough to spend a night with us here and have a couple of chats about Star Wars. It's the one, the only, the Gold Man. Thank you very much for coming on, my friend.
Thank you for having me on. I'm not going to turn down an offer to talk about Star Wars, and I'm excited to be here. I love the work you do.
Oh my God.
And let's chat Star Wars. I'm excited.
Let's chat. Man, I don't know if I could have picked someone better to chat Star Wars about, especially for a long time. I know you're not all about the long videos, but man, last couple of months, it's become your kind of thing, man.
I mean, I definitely made a few, some significantly longer than others.
Yes,
but,
and we're definitely going to get into that. I promise you. Just right off the bat, I want to get your gut reaction to what it feels like to be called the good long man. Like the long man that's not Mauler. Like what is, like, when you hear that, when that's put in the comments, what is your gut reaction? Are you like, oh my God, like, please don't put me in the same conversation? Or is it like a sort of a compliment?
That's a good question. I honestly, I'm not sure I really think anything of it. I mean, I've made a long video before, but I just want to, my goal with YouTube, and we'll probably get into this more, I just want to make a difference. I want to make the Star Wars community a better place. And, you know, I've seen a lot of these longer videos from many different people, like hours and hours long, about why the sequels suck and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? Like, if I could just make that one video, you know, like that 2.5 hour long video that just defends Rey the whole time. And even if, like, there's definitely some things in that video that I could have done better. There's some mistakes and there's some things that I was like, oh, I wish I could have reworded that differently. But if that video just means a lot to one person, you know, that one person that loves Rey, for example, and just like, oh, everyone craps on this character all the time, and I just want to see a video, and they watch it, and it just means a lot to them, that's all I can ask for.
You've done your job. You've absolutely done your job, and I feel the same way. It's sort of, we were just talking about this sort of brotherhood that we have on Star Wars YouTube, and I think a lot of us have that same sort of, that mentality when we go into it, and we're like, man, if just one person really likes this video and it makes them smile, or it makes them laugh, or it makes them do something, have some sort of emotional reaction. I mean, that's what makes it worth it, right?
You know, it's funny. I recently passed 1,000 subscribers, and once you pass 1,000,
that's a huge step. Congratulations.
So once you pass 1,000 subscribers, you can start making money. And like, I've made like maybe like 50 cents a day, which is nothing. You know, it's cool seeing like the dollar signs next to your video, but when someone comments something saying like, oh, watching your videos just makes my day better all the time, and you've really made me appreciate the sequels more, that just means so much more than the view count or the amount of money you made. So I do it for the comments, for the people that I know that I've made a difference.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, that one comment is worth, it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. It is. Well, anyway, let's get into Star Wars a little bit. Just watching your videos, and a lot of your viewers, a lot of your subscribers will attest to this. You are so incredibly knowledgeable when it comes to the franchise. And I think to have as good a content, and just in your background, we're looking at it now, just the amount of merchandise that you have is spectacular, may I add. However, I think you and I will both agree, in order to have really quality content put out every week, twice a week, 3 times a week, you have to know the franchise. I mean, you really have to know what you're talking about. And you are definitely one of those people. I just really want to know, in your younger years, maybe it was recently, I don't know the answer to these questions, which is why I'm asking. What was that one moment in time where you decided that Star Wars was for you? I don't want to know that whole life story, like, oh my God, you know, what was that one moment where you're like, wow, this is something I can really, really love?
Now, that single moment. You know, it's funny because, again, I've been a fan of Star Wars for basically all my life. Like, there's not that moment where I remember, like, oh, this is when I got into Star Wars. Like, my earliest memory, Star Wars was just a thing. I think the one moment maybe that really made me love Star Wars even more was when I saw The Force Awakens. for the second time in theaters.
Wow. Okay.
Because the first time, every time I see a Star Wars movie for the first time, you know, I'm a little nervous. You know, of course, it's a new Star Wars movie. You're excited, but you don't want them to screw it up.
Right.
So after I saw The Force Awakens the first time, I was like, okay, I love this movie. Thank God. And then the second time I saw it with all of my high school friends. None of them had seen it yet. They knew I saw it. And I was like, I'm not saying anything. Just know that Jar Jar is not in this movie.
Yeah.
And so I remember, and I was old first because a few of them were big EU fans. You know, a lot of EU fans weren't too excited about Disney buying Star Wars and retconning the canon, the expanded universe.
Yeah.
So we were watching The Force Awakens, and I was sitting next to my friends. And of course I was watching the movie, but I was also really curious to see what they think. And they were just having so much fun. Like my one friend, he's like, oh, I love this. I remember them cheering when Rey used the Force to pull the lightsaber. Yeah. And just, it's funny because it wasn't really the movie, but just seeing my friends so happy about Star Wars that's probably my happiest moment in the theater. And it wasn't because of the movie, it was because of my friends. You know, so maybe that wasn't the movie that made me decide to be a big Star Wars fan, but it's the moment that definitely reinforced I love this franchise.
It's so funny that you say that, because my girlfriend now, I've had the same experience. She was not a Star Wars fan when I started dating her. But of course, as all good boyfriends do, you gotta show them the movies.
I've had to do that too.
And you know how it is, but the fact that she loved it so much on her first watching her reactions, like for the first time, and seeing her become a huge fan, and now she's ecstatic. She loves it as much as anybody that I know.
Yeah.
Just like seeing your friends, it's like, I don't know what that is, but that's sometimes more exciting than seeing the movie yourself. Like watching somebody else enjoy it is like, it's almost like a reaffirming feeling. Like,
it is.
Yes.
It's funny. People ask me, they're like, how can you watch these movies over and over again? And I'm like, I don't just sit down and watch them by myself like once a week. No. Most of the time I rewatch them with people who haven't seen it before. And it's basically like watching the movies again. I remember back in the day, a few years ago, when I was with my girlfriend, we watched all the movies and we saw The Force Awakens. And when Han Solo died, she started crying. Now that just made me so happy. Not that she was. It's funny to say that. Not because she was sad, but because she was so invested with the character that she got really emotional and cried. I was like, yes, like Star Wars is making an impact to her. Yeah. Maybe she's not happy at the moment, but
at least I know it's an impact. I had the same experience when Yoda died. I mean, now that's a sad moment, but I was like, dang, like, I don't know what that feeling is, but it really is. It's fun to watch your friends enjoy it as much as you do. And that's, absolutely. I don't know how to describe it, but that's funny that you bring up The Force Awakens, which is a movie that's brought up a lot on this show, particularly. A lot of people, and myself included, who have been Star Wars fans for a long time, were bummed when the EU was whisked away. I don't think there's anybody out there that was like, oh man, dang, I'm so glad to see the EU go. Like, there's a lot of stories in there. Like, I get it. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
But like adults, we grow up and we get over it. We move on. But seeing The Force Awakens was like, I've talked to so many people about it on this show, on Twitter, on YouTube. It was a life experience, wasn't it? Like, seeing that movie for the first time wasn't just like watching a movie. It was like a solidifying life experience.
Yeah, I'm a younger person, and I have the smallest memory of seeing Revenge of the Sith in theaters, but it's basically non-existent. And then I remember the day before I saw The Force Awakens, I was like, I'm seeing a new Star Wars movie. Because, to me, for like the longest time, it was just Star Wars is a 6-movie saga.
Absolutely.
And then I was like, I'm seeing episode 7. And I was like, I'm going to see Luke Skywalker tomorrow. And then he was barely in the movie, but it was still so exciting.
It's funny that you say that, because it's an exact same line I've brought up on this show so many times. You and I growing up, I imagine we're around the same age. You and I growing up, it was just a fact of life that Star Wars was 6 movies. The sky's blue, the grass is green. There's 6 Star Wars movies. And here we are in the theater, and episode 7 comes up, and it's weird. It was almost weird, but you're like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I have, and I tell my friends all the time, and maybe you can attest to this too. Whenever Star Wars movies start coming out, it was 7, 8, 9, Rogue One. I'm like, guys, I know you guys want to go out on these long college benders, but like, I got to stay alive for another 3 days because I got to see this movie.
you know what's funny? In my junior prom in high school, I skipped my junior prom to go see the premiere of Captain America: Civil War.
Okay.
And I was like, I wouldn't have done that for my senior prom, but if a Star Wars movie came out on my senior prom, screw prom. I'm definitely going to see a new Star Wars movie the opening night.
But I think that speaks to the enormity and the impact of the franchise itself. Like it is a life event every time one of these movies drops. I mean, it is a life, especially for people like you and I, who I don't want to say live and die with the franchise, but who have it as such a high part of their life. You know, it is a very much a life event. Anyway, moving on. I want to know what character from these very impactful movies has made the most impact on you. Is it the Rey Skywalker, who you are so that you probably know more than most people do, or is it somebody else?
So it's funny because I'd say my favorite character is Luke Skywalker. You know, it can go on forever. Just the way he is in the originals. You know, just like it's hard to not see yourself in Luke, especially someone like me. But this past 10 months, like Luke Skywalker is beloved, right? Especially in the originals. I can make dozens of videos talking about why Luke in The Empire Strikes Back is amazing, but I don't feel that's necessary. It's been done so many times. So talking about Luke in The Last Jedi has just made me appreciate the character so much more because I'm someone who loves the way he was portrayed in that movie. I will always love it. It's definitely my favorite thing about the sequels. My single favorite scene in the sequels is when Luke talks to Yoda on Ahch-To. It's so touching.
I love that. Love that scene.
So that aspect of Luke is probably the one that's affected me the most. And then also there's Rey. Rey is up there on my favorite character list. She's not number one, but considering she's probably the character that gets the most crap, either her or Rose, I just feel not obligated, but I want to explain why I love this character so much. And I don't think she's perfect, but I definitely think she's criminally underrated. And then when you spend a month working many hours a day, working on the same video, my Mary Sue video, it's just like you notice a lot about the character. And I just really appreciate her. And when I see the way she means a lot to other people, it also just makes a difference. It changes the way I see the character.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's really refreshing to hear another Star Wars fan come out and say, man, I love Luke in The Last Jedi. Like I think a lot of people are on the fence still with that character in that movie. You know, some people are like,
still
you know, I get it, but like personally, I don't understand. You know, like they have a back and forth with it. I'm sure you know a lot of people that just are not about that character, but it's so refreshing to have someone that has the confidence to say, yes, Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, that's my guy. And I'm totally on board with you. I mean, he's a guy that had no support system, right? Like he's a guy that like built this whole Jedi Order from the ground up. And what other Jedi are there to help you out? Like it's you, dog. Like you're the guy. And it all crumbles around you and people are like, oh my God, why is Luke Skywalker being such a crybaby? I'm like, dog, this guy had no support. There's no help for him out there. He's the only one. There's a lot
of other aspects. And then like I remember when I first saw The Last Jedi, I was a little disappointed because, you know, I was like, I remember hearing a leak that like Luke was going to take out his green lightsabers and just kick ass, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be so exciting. So when it didn't happen, I was a little disappointed. And then I thought to myself, I was like, okay, I didn't get what I want, but what was in the movie? And then I rewatched it again and I loved it. Like from that moment on, I loved it. And like, you know, there's a lot of people that dislike the way Luke was portrayed, and there's nothing wrong with that. I get, you know, not getting the super optimistic Luke and seeing your favorite character be somewhat of a pessimist and somewhat of a hermit. It can be upsetting, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, the way I see the character is that Luke Skywalker is arguably one of the most popular movie characters ever. He is the protagonist, and seeing Luke struggle so much and come back from all the mistakes he made and still inspire the galaxy to stand up to the First Order or evil in general, it's inspiring. It's like, yeah, you know, everyone has rough days, right? Luke had it worse. You know, he's the reason that his nephew turned to the dark side, and in a sense, he can be indirectly blamed for the death of Han Solo. But he still toughened it up and saved the galaxy and stood up to faces mistakes, and I find that extremely inspiring.
It's incredibly relatable. You know, we all have bad days. We all get knocked down. But, you know, like they say, it's that next day. It's the day you get up. You got to just keep going. And that's exactly what Luke did. He made it better the next day. I want to talk to you, going off of what you just said about The Last Jedi, how it wasn't something that you expected because you heard the leaks or whatever. I want to know that one Star Wars experience that was probably the most surprising for you. And a moment that that caught you off guard, or a moment that you didn't really expect.
Most surprising, I would say probably Snoke's death.
Okay,
like that was one. And it's hard to think back because there's a lot of moments where I was really surprised. You know, like with Han's death in The Force Awakens, we kind of all somewhat saw it coming.
Yeah.
We've known Harrison Ford wasn't too big on the franchise. It would be hard to see him be relevant through all three movies. But like, you know, I always picture, because, you know, Force Awakens was rather similar to A New Hope, right?
Absolutely.
So, you know, you picture Snoke, he's like, okay, he's going to be the Emperor. He's going to be the big bad throughout all three movies. And like, it's going to culminate at the end with Rey somehow defeating Snoke in episode 9. So when Snoke died, I was just like, wow.
Yeah, where do we go from here?
I was just like, no, it's like, it was one of the last things I expected. Like I could have, if you gave me a piece of paper and asked me to jot down like 20 hot takes that I think are really far-fetched things to happen in The Last Jedi, I just don't think I would have written that down.
No.
Like Luke dying, I didn't think it was going to happen, but I could have seen it happening. Like either Kylo Ren turning good or Rey turning bad. It didn't happen, but those are some things like, okay, it's far-fetched, but I could see it happening.
Right.
But Snoke dying, I just didn't see that. So that was probably the single most surprised I was from experiencing a new Star Wars story.
That's such a good answer. I mean, that's the climax of the movie right there. Yeah. And that culminated on the fact that like you would have never guessed it, much less guess it. Like that was the defining moment, maybe at Kylo Ren's point in his story right there. It's like it was crazy. I remember watching that in the theater. I mean, it was absolutely spectacular. That whole like, what was it, 10 minutes? Like from like the throne room fight until the time Holdo blasts through the supremacy. Oh my God.
You're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
It's a fantastic 10 minutes, 15, maybe not even that long. I mean, it's absolutely stellar movie making.
Absolutely.
Now, we're going to skip over some of the depressing questions here, but I want to get to a question that I always want to ask on this show. Because I always find it to be the most telling of the kind of Star Wars fan you are, the kind of person that how you digest media. Doesn't make any sense, but like the kind of person you are and how you digest media. So I want to ask you, if Kathleen Kennedy came up to you, the Gold Man, and she said, hey, Gold Man, make me a movie, make me a book, write me a script. First of all, what medium are you making and what's the story?
So in a perfect world, I would love to have the trio from the sequel trilogy back. But now
this is the perfect world. You're getting a blank check. There is no monetary value yet.
Yeah. So probably an animated series or a series revolving around those characters. I just want to see Rey's story continued in some way. It's funny because even though the holiday special that just came out wasn't canon, it was so exciting for me just to see something around Rey post the Rise of Skywalker. And so in a perfect world, I would love to see Daisy Ridley and John Boyega come back and just be part of a series that really fleshes out that era post Rise of Skywalker. And I want to be something very different. Now, to be a little more realistic, because I don't see those two coming back, I think an animated series just around those characters would be in some ways better. Like something like The Mandalorian, while I love, it's rather small in scope. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if I want to, when I picture like my ideal post Rise of Skywalker story that follows Rey and Finn, I picture like something that has galactic wide consequences, like Rey somewhat trying to rebuild the Jedi. Also seeing like the some government, like what are they going to do? They're going to make a new republic. I think that's something that could be really interesting.
Yeah. I
want to see them dive into a lot of areas of Star Wars that we haven't seen before. Like I don't want to see another galactic wide war. I hope the First Order war is done, and I want to see them face new conflicts. Like what if there's a civil war brewing between two areas of the galaxy? What is Rey gonna do? Would this new government where they want the Jedi to be involved. Like they saw what happened in the prequels. They saw what happened with Luke. And Rey is this 20-year-old girl who's been a Jedi for a year, assuming it's right after the Rise of Skywalker. Why should we make this girl someone who has such important galactic impact? God, so I just want to see a lot of like those questions that just really tackle Rey and have her struggle in so many ways. Like, what if someone finds out that Rey is a Palpatine? Because it seems like it's still a big secret after the Rise of Skywalker. How is Rey going to react? Is that going to be a secret she's desperate to keep from everyone? If everyone finds out, how will that affect her? I mean, it's one thing people, if you read the book Bloodline, people were pissed that Luke and Leia were the children of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
At least Darth Vader turned back to the light side while he was still mostly an evil man. Yeah, but we're talking about Sheev Palpatine here, the literal devil of the galaxy. He can be blamed for probably trillions of deaths. Like, how would the galaxy react to the granddaughter of that person being the face of the Jedi? Like, there's just so many interesting questions I think of.
Yeah.
And so if I had all the money in the world, I would get the best voice actors, arguably the actors back, and just tell that kind of story.
Now that is a real interesting plot development. Just going back to your base overall point here, having a conflict, but having some third party, whether it's a government or the two parties at war, say, we don't want the Jedi involved, would be in of itself such an interesting story. Because I feel like Rey as a character would feel obligated to get herself involved. Like she would try her best to help, but having that conflict would say, where those people were saying, no, we don't want you, would be so interesting.
And it's funny because Rey, even though she went throughout this journey, throughout the sequels, she's still a relatively naive young woman. I could see her making brash decisions that aren't the best for everyone. I can see her making decisions that are definitely unpopular. Like, and I also just want to see, like, what if I want to see villains that might not be super powerful, but will really challenge her morally and have her just mature much more. And just like these thoughts that I have. And the same thing with Finn. What if there's a conflict, right? Where like there's a remnant of the First Order and Finn wants to save them because of his relationship with the Stormtroopers. And what if Rey wants something that's the opposite of that? How are these two who may be strongly disagreeing on some conflict, how are they going to respond? Will their friendship last? Hopefully. But just like I want these really, Star Wars has been mostly like lighthearted. It doesn't ask really the tough questions. I mean, The Last Jedi
it doesn't.
Most movies don't. I want to see a series that does that. That's a little more mature. Still, at heart, a kid's show, but for everyone. But I want to ask it like a more mature question. It's kind of like the Clone Wars does.
Yeah, that tackles some themes that might be in Rey's mind. That tackles big, heavy moral questions. Absolutely. Now, here's a more opinionated question I should ask you. Do you ever? First of all, are you surprised? Because I know I am that we have not really received any sequel content post The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, any sequel content at all.
Yeah.
Like, or surrounding any of the movies.
Am I surprised? Not particularly. You look at Lucasfilm these past few years, they've always been somewhat reactionary in terms of like the previous content. Like, in 2015, if you said the word prequels, it's like, oh no, you mentioned the prequels.
Yeah, I agree.
And like, when you watch like some of the behind the scenes featurettes for The Force Awakens, they're like, we're going to do practical effects. We're going to do things that the prequels didn't do. They didn't mention the prequels, but they were basically subtweeting the prequels.
Yeah, it was a very intentional anti-prequel kind of.
And then like when Force Awakens was too similar, they're like, and you watch the featurettes for the Last Jedi, they're like, we're doing something fresh and new. Like Star Wars is new again. Again, they didn't specifically say The Force Awakens was unoriginal, but they were somewhat subtweeting that movie. Yeah. And then with the Rise of Skywalker, a lot of the promotion was like really nostalgic. We're like, this is Star Wars. Yeah. So this is what Star Wars is supposed to be. And The Last Jedi, people were like, didn't really feel like Star Wars. So again, they're not saying The Last Jedi wasn't Star Wars, but they're kind of subtweeting it. So I'm not surprised. The sequels aren't particularly popular these days. I'm surprised they even made the holiday special revolve around the sequel characters. So that's given me hope. I'm not surprised, but I do think eventually we'll get these stories. I can't imagine 15 years from now that the Rise of Skywalker is the end of Star Wars. Like, it's the end of the Skywalker saga, sure, but it just, to me, it can't be the end of Star Wars.
No.
If that makes sense.
No, absolutely not. No, I totally agree with you there. I don't think that there's any way that Star Wars just sort of stop. Like Star Wars, the universe just sort of stops after the Rise of Skywalker. I still think that, especially where, I try to tell people this all the time, especially people that are very pro EU, that we're in the infancy of this Disney takeover of Star Wars. We look back at the EU and we see this absolutely sprawling story with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories, but like it wasn't always like that. You know what I'm saying? Like people look back at the EU and think, oh my God, there was so much there. Well, yeah, it was 40 years worth. We're not even 10 years yet into this Disney takeover. With
the canon expanded universe, that's been a thing for 6 years, but a lot of the stories, they've been treading water. Like they don't want to, when the sequels were coming out, they didn't want to touch what Luke was doing between episodes 6 and 7. So while it is 6 years old, it feels younger because most of the books, now I think a lot of them are good, but most of them really don't follow the characters we know. They're like these side stories that tell really interesting stories about the characters. But like with the EU, like most of the books after Return of the Jedi follow Luke, Han, and Leia. I want to see that with Rey, Finn, and Poe.
Absolutely. And I think just to that point, I think Disney has taken a very clear, Disney and Lucasfilm in this new era have taken a very clear, like, let's build the world out first sort of approach. Right. And just like you said, I mean, they're doing it through first of all, very good stories. I do book reviews on the channel, and I can count on one hand the amount of books that I've disliked from the new canon. I mean, and really like dislike, I mean, like they weren't my favorite. Like a lot of these books have just hit it out of the park. Like you just mentioned Bloodline. One of those books that was just spectacular. Lost Stars was spectacular. All these great world building events, but you're right, we have not quite gotten that definitive post the Rise of Skywalker story. And I don't know how long you think in your mind it might be, but I don't know if it's going to be soon.
I don't think so either. Hopefully in the next few years, like with The Mandalorian going so well with most people, probably going to focus on that. Got a lot of the Disney Plus stuff, the High Republic too. But I'm patient. Patience is important. So,
and coming off that, just real quickly, if you had to put odds on it, what do you think the odds are that Daisy Ridley and not Adam Driver, I shouldn't say, but Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and Oscar Isaac, they all come back to reprise their roles, whether it's in an animated series or they make cameos or, they come back just to play those characters? Because I'll tell you personally, I think it's incredibly slim. I can't see them coming back.
For Adam Driver, I'd put that as close to zero. Right. He's just someone who's way too busy. I'd say something similar to Oscar Isaac, maybe a little higher, but not close to zero. With Daisy Ridley and John Boyega, it's hard to say never. I mean, if you look, it took Harrison Ford 32 years to reprise his role as Han Solo. Same thing with Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher. So it's hard to say never. I do think in some capacity we will see Daisy Ridley and John Boyega come back again.
I think that's a safe bet. I don't know if it'll be in a major capacity, but I think in some capacity we will definitely see them again. If you
look at someone like John, he may have been disappointed with the way the sequel trilogy panned out, but he's been having these conversations with people. Like I read today that he had a phone call with Kathleen Kennedy where they talked about stuff, and that's very important. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
But someone like John Boyega at heart, he's a Star Wars fan. I remember I watched some of these press junkets for The Rise of Skywalker, and they asked John Boyega, if you could be any Star Wars character, who would you be? And he said Kit Fisto. I was like, that's so cool. John Boyega knows who Kit Fisto is. Now I doubt Daisy Ridley knows who that is, but someone like John Boyega, they really do love Star Wars, and they both watch The Mandalorian. So I think, a few years pass, the disdain for the sequels will go down. It will just be kind of something that, I don't think people are going to necessarily love it all so much, but it'll be in the past. People won't be so angry at it anymore, and maybe they'll come back. I think at some point they will return in Star Wars in some way.
I want to talk to you about a regret you might have had as a Star Wars fan. Something that you, maybe it's a video that you absolutely hate that you have. Maybe this is, maybe you skipped down on seeing The Force Awakens for the 8th time. I don't know, anything. Name a regret that you have as a Star Wars fan. And this is hard because there is not a lot of, like, at least for me, I don't know if I can answer this question. I don't know if I have any regrets.
One of my biggest regrets. This might be a tough one because the alternative could have turned out worse. But reading all the leaks for The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, that's tough.
It is tough because I read them. I read them like way before they came out, so I knew what was going to happen. So now while it's a regret in the sense that it's always nice to go see the moments happen for the first time, like with Force Awakens and Last Jedi. Like I remember being shocked at some of the things and like, okay, this is what's going to happen. Like with Snoke dying, like, wow, Snoke's dead. With The Rise of Skywalker, there were a few things that I didn't know were going to happen, but like I knew the big beats. I knew Rey was going to be Palpatine. I knew Kylo would die. I knew that Rey would go to Tatooine and take the name Skywalker. So I will never get the chance to know my reaction first time to what my reaction would be for those moments. And on the flip side of that, I was someone who really loved the idea of Rey being a nobody, and I still do. So I wonder, had I saw The Rise of Skywalker and heard Rey was a Palpatine for the first time, would it have made me just really dislike the movie? It's possible.
Yeah, it is possible.
I was someone who really, to this day, really wanted Kylo Ren to live. So when I see him kiss Rey, and I'm like, okay, they might get together, and then he dies. Like, would that just ruin it for me? I will never know. So when I saw the movie for the first time, I kind of made amends with the things I didn't like. And I was like, okay, what are the positives with these? And I definitely found positives in some of the things I wish they didn't do. So it made me enjoy the movie. I enjoyed the movie watching it, and I'm not sure if had I didn't read the leaks, if I would have enjoyed it. So it's like, I don't know what would have happened if I had seen it without reading the leaks, but it's something I'll never know.
Here's what I'm going to ask you. When you read those leaks, did you know they were true? Like, what was like in the back of your head where you're like, oh.
Okay, so it was a little hard to believe. It's like you hear leaks all the time. You're not sure if they're true or not. It was before the last trailer came out. The one that was on like Monday Night Football or something.
That's late. That's late into the.
So it was like in August, or it was in October, and I forgot when I read the leaks. But I heard the things. I was like, these could be true. These could be not be true. I don't know. And then so I watched the trailer, and I remember one of the leaks I read was about C-3PO losing his memory. So in that trailer, when I saw the scene when C-3PO says, "Taking one last look at my friends," I was like,
"Oh God,
these leaks are true."
Oh my
I was still somewhat. I don't want to say I was in denial, but I was like, okay, this is one aspect of it. The whole leaks might not be true. But then every subsequent like teaser that came out, I was like,
oh man.
Like, I remember there's this one TV spot and it showed Rey on Octu, and it was the first time we saw that, like the burning the TIE fighter, and I was like, yeah, that was in the leaks. And like I was putting pieces together, and it's not something that's like I was dreading. I was like, oh no. There were a few things I remember earlier on in the leaks, and this was a meme, was that when Kylo Ren was thrown into the pit, like that was originally supposed to be the end of his character. Like there was no mention of him coming back and saving Rey, and that I was so scared. Oh my God. I was like, not only is Kylo Ren gonna die, but is that gonna be the end of his character? He's gonna
die in the worst way possible.
Yeah, I remember because the leak that was posted on Reddit, like, and thrown into a pit never to be seen again. And I was just like, oh, I still get like chills thinking about how awful that would have been. And then like one of the leaks, like 2 weeks before the movie came out, said he crawls out and kisses Rey and then dies. I was like, he still dies, not ideal, but at least it's not before. So I was really nervous at first, but then like the leaks that I had up into my mind the day before the movie came out, I was like, okay, this is not everything I would have wanted, but again, it's in the execution. Like I remember reading the Han Solo scene, like him coming back. I thought, this is so stupid. Like, what is he? Is he a ghost? Is he a memory? It just sounded so weird. Yeah. And then I watched the scene. I was like, wow. Like this is actually really good. This is the best scene in the movie for me. Yeah. So it just goes to show how everything in execution, everything that you read on paper, it's the execution that matters. Now I don't go out hunting for leaks. Like not about that. Once, and maybe you do this too, once that red carpet premiere comes out, that's it for me on social media. Like I shut it down. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, everything. It goes off. Yeah.
once the red carpet, because once that red carpet premiere comes out, then people have seen it, right? Like, reviewers have seen it. People have, like real people have seen it. So I'm like, forget it. We're not going on. I'm not seeing anything. I don't want to know anything. Are you one of those people that actually hunts out leaks and tries to discern for yourself, oh, this doesn't sound true, or this does sound true?
It's
something that you just like ran across and like, I have to read this. I have to keep going.
It's probably something close to the latter. Like, I'm not someone who wants to know leaks. I really like enjoying an experience for the first time. But it's funny, like, it'll be like the morning an episode of The Mandalorian comes out, and I'm like waiting for the afternoon to watch it. I'm on YouTube. I'm like, oh, I know I shouldn't look at this, but I'm just gonna scroll to the next video. Let's see. I'm like, oh no, that's Bo-Katan in live action. Crap. I'm like, it's funny because I seem so stupid. It's like, obviously don't do that, but I just can't control myself. Like, I'll be on Reddit and it'll be like September, and it'll be like, we know the ending of The Rise of Skywalker. I'm like, I'll click on, like, oh, what does it say? What does it say? And then I get disappointed every time because I'm like, I knew I shouldn't have read or seen that.
No, so, I stay away from that. I look at it, I go, no, I don't care if it's
I wish I was like that.
How far-fetched it sounds. I don't want to know.
In a perfect world, I wish I won't watch any Star Wars trailer. Like,
really?
Seeing, I think what's something I'm so excited about for these last few episodes of The Mandalorian, and I'm not sure when this will come out, but right now the chapter 13 hasn't come out yet. And all the trailers we've seen for season 2, they haven't shown anything from these last 4 episodes. So like, I'm genuinely going in blank, and that makes me so excited. Like with the trailers, especially for the movies, you can kind of piece together, not so much what's going to happen, but like what's going to be and where. Like I remember in The Last Jedi, when the Last Jedi trailer came out, you know how it ended and Rey's like, I need someone to show me my way and all this?
Yes.
And Kylo held up his hand?
Yes.
I was like, okay, I watched these trailers like 100 times, so let's really see it. I'm like, okay, I see Snoke is like holding Rey, and she's wearing this outfit, but in that scene, she's wearing the outfit that she wore at the end of The Force Awakens, so I doubt it's going to be at the end of the movie when she sees Kylo, so it's some sort of misdirection, and it ends up being it was. I was like, okay, the movie probably is going to end on Crate, so like, oh, we see a trailer shot of Leia on Crate, and then she gets blown out of the Radis. Like, she can't be dead. So it's like, part of that, it doesn't ruin the experience. It's somewhat fun, but I just wish, I had the self-discipline to not watch the Star Wars trailer so I could just really go in blank every time. But now that I'm doing YouTube, there's no chance I can do that.
No, yeah. See, I don't get on board with the whole trailer thing. Like, I watch all the trailers. And it might be a trust thing for me. Like, I trust the people at Lucasfilm to not completely blow the movie in the trailer. Now, I got a little bit scared during The Rise of Skywalker because you remember, like, the whole thing came out with Dark Rey, like, she had that flash in the trailer. Yeah. And they really came out and like, oh my God, I can't believe they put that in the trailer. I was like, oh my God, did they spoil the whole thing? Like, is this something that's going to be terrible? But trailers, I feel like I'm very trustworthy with. I don't like Reddit. I don't do Reddit, man. I don't do that. I don't trust people on there. Nothing against you. If you're a big Reddit user, I just don't trust it.
Trailers they're like bittersweet. And I just, I wish I don't watch them, but I do.
Well, you've kind of already spoken your mind, but I want to get a real candid answer out of you on how you feel about the future of this franchise going forward. Now that we've passed the sequel trilogy, now that that's all said and done, what's your gut feeling going forward with this franchise? Do you feel like it's in a good place? Do you feel like it could be better? What's your analysis?
I'm definitely optimistic about the future. And I try to be somewhat objective about this and removing my bias. I'm like, okay, I love the sequels, but they were obviously very divisive. They didn't work for most people, and that's fine. But I look at something like, okay, besides the sequels, what have we gotten? Clone Wars, the last season, really well loved. Jedi Fallen Order, people have been criticizing EA for the past few years. Well deserved in my opinion. And then Jedi Fallen Order came out, very beloved game. Squadrons has come out, mostly liked game. And I see Mandalorian's doing really well.
Very well.
Like, the excitement around Mandalorian week to week, I love it so much. It's like we're gonna get more shows. And like something like the Cassian Andor show, it's not something that a lot of people are super excited about, but it's very low risk, high reward. Yeah. Like if that show sucks, no one's gonna be like raging about it.
Oh no, the Cassian Andor show sucked. Yeah,
no, I'm actually not. I take that back. There will be people probably raging, but not as many
this
people.
This is Star Wars we're talking about.
Yeah, but like, you know, if they screw up Luke Skywalker, like how people think they did with the sequels, sure, you get mad. But like if they screw up Cassian Andor, not many people are gonna be mad. But if it's really good, then people are gonna be praising it. Yeah. So there's not. I mean, the only thing that's like that is Obi-Wan. You know, I don't see how they could ruin his character. I don't think they will. But you know, to someone it might. But besides that, that's why I don't like doing these stories that revolve around characters we know. I just I like learning new characters. Like I think that's another reason why The Mandalorian is so well liked right now, and it's done so well. And we'll be seeing Ahsoka soon, probably. I'm not optimistic about that. So yeah, like I'd say I'm optimistic about the future. Definitely.
I agree. You know, I totally agree about The Mandalorian. I mean, I think absolutely one of the reasons why this show is just absolutely knocking people's socks off week to week is because, I mean, there's new characters. I mean, like we're learning something new every week, it seems like. And especially like with characters like Moff Gideon. Like I love Moff Gideon because I know nothing about Moff Gideon. Right? Exactly. Like I just, every single time I see him, I'm like, this is the best character. I can't wait to learn more about you. I absolutely agree with everything that you just said about The Mandalorian. I mean, it's totally spot on.
I definitely feel that way.
Let's talk about YouTube, shall we?
Let's do it.
The eternal YouTube brotherhood of Star Wars content. You and I are a part of this. You, of course, just reached over 1,000 subscribers. Very much congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Well deserved. Thank
you.
I want to get to what made you start Star Wars YouTube? I mean, it's a leap of faith. Like you put yourself out there for people. What's that? What made you start it?
You know, it's funny. Like for maybe these past 10 years, like I wanted to make content. It's like that weird urge. And I've always been somewhat like shy of it. You know, what would people think of you? And there's been obstacles in the way, sure. And I remember last winter. So actually the winter of 2018 and 2019.
Okay.
I tried YouTube. I made one video that's still on my channel. It's my very first video. The editing is rather poor, but it got a decent amount of views. And I made a few more videos after that. And it didn't pan out. You know, I got burnt out. But I didn't go in with the right mindset. Like I tried to make content. I was like, okay, people are posting their responses to this news. I'll do the same. And I was like, I went in with the wrong mentality. I went with the mentality that, oh, I think this is going to work. And then when I tried YouTube again, this past February, I was like, okay, no, I think I'm ready. I really want to do this, but I really want to try and provide value to people. Yeah. Like I love the sequels and I see the amount of hate that they get online. Not all the hate is bad, but you know, they're not films that are universally loved. Yeah. And I was like, and I see videos, I mean, we talked about this earlier. There's like so many videos that are hours and hours long about why The Force Awakens sucks, why The Last Jedi sucks, why The Rise of Skywalker sucks, why Rey sucks. And like I'll occasionally find this 30-minute video about why The Last Jedi is amazing. And I love those videos, but I was like, they're very few. They're not that many. And I was like, there has to be more people like me that just want someone who loves the sequels and just talks about what he loves about them. I don't think the sequels are perfect, obviously. At the end of the day, my favorite trilogy is still the originals. Yeah. But like, there are definitely that feel the same way as me. So I took a leap of faith and I made a video about Luke, which I already had. And it did well. And I was like, okay, I have other ideas. And I kept on making videos. It's like, there's this aspect of the sequels that's criticized. And if I disagree with it, like, I just want to explain why I disagree with it. Like, there's so many ideas. Like, I don't know. I honestly don't remember a lot of my videos because after I upload them, I just don't ever watch them again ever.
That's right.
Like, obviously, there's famous ones like the Mary Sue one. Past 5 years, ever since The Force Awakens came out, the Mary Sue term just infuriated me. And I was like,
it's just so
and then
dead.
Over the summer, I would make a bit of like 3 videos a week, maybe. And I think I was at like 400 subs in like 5 or 6 months. And people were just saying, oh, you should address the Mary Sue topic. And I was like, I want to, but I know I have so much to say. So I was running a little low on ideas. And I was like, okay. So I made a video. I was like, okay, I'm going to take like some time off. I'm going to make the Mary Sue video. I have no clue how long it's going to take to make. I haven't even written the script yet, but I know it's going to be long, and so I'm going to need some time to make it. I'm like, okay, we'll wait. So then I remember I sat down for like 2 days. One day I sat down for maybe like a few hours. I rewatched the movies. I somewhat took notes. I know the movies basically by heart, but you know, some things here and there. And like I just wrote a script. And for me, like my scripts, I'd say about a page is equivalent to 2 minutes of screen time. So most of my scripts were about 4 to 5 pages for my earlier videos. That's about 8 to 10 minutes. Yeah. And I didn't even keep track. And I kept on typing and typing and typing for my Mary Sue video. And then I was like, okay, I have my conclusion. It was 75 pages. And I was like, wow, okay, this is going to take me a while. So I sat down for a few days and recorded. And for me, the editing and during the editing process, my least favorite part is recording my voice. Like I love writing my scripts. I love editing it, but recording, I don't know. I'm someone who somewhat stutters sometimes, and like reading a script, sometimes you mess up and it's like, oh, I got to say this sentence over and over again. Yeah. Where I'll like write a sentence that sounds good in my head. And then when I say it out loud, I just like jumble it, and like it gets frustrating. Absolutely. It took me so long. I remember I did like 2 streams. I was like, hey, here's an update. You know, I'm this far along. It's probably gonna be like 2.5 hours. And they came out, and it was easily one of the best decisions I made. For one, I'm really proud of that video. Obviously, there's some things that I wish I did different. But the response, you know, there's a lot of people that just said, thank you so much for making this video. Obviously, there's a lot of people that didn't like it. I mean, right now there's more dislikes than likes. It genuinely doesn't bother me, because like every individual like means so much more than the dislikes. Oh, yeah. So it's like, you know, I see some people commenting in the video like, oh, it's such a shame that this video has more dislikes. I wish. Some people are so toxic, and I'm like, it just doesn't bother me. Like I don't do. Obviously, it's nice to have people like your video. Obviously, I wish everyone liked it. But like it's those comments of people saying like, you made me appreciate Ray more, or someone's saying, oh, I love this character and thank you so much for standing up for her. It's stuff like that just matters so much more than any inch of negativity. Yeah, you're not in it for the numbers. You're not in it for someone that's like, we got to have 300 likes. We got to have 400 likes. You're in it for the emotional reaction. Like, just like we talked about at the top of the show, like, it's the emotional reaction from the people that we watch Star Wars with that just absolutely makes it for me. And it's the same thing with making the YouTube content. It's like that one person that loves your content, that one person that has an emotional reaction to it, you're like, that's what we do it for. Exactly. And I think another thing that's important with YouTube, you know, sees a lot of people, I think there's a lot of like rage, clickbait, you know, people get angry. Hate thrives on YouTube. And sometimes I was like, okay, this is a topic I could easily address, and I know I'll get a lot of views, but I just don't feel morally right making this video. I think I've typed up a script before. I forgot what it was. I think it was, I was annoyed with Kathleen Kennedy about something. And I was just like, I don't want to be that guy. And I'm not saying don't make videos that are critical. I've made videos that are critical before. I made one about why I don't think Finn was done so well in Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker. I'm not saying don't be critical, but I almost did this recently where I was like, I have to ask myself, if the reason I'm making this video is because I think it's going to get a lot of views, if that's the single reason why I'm doing it, then I can't do it. Yeah. It's one thing if I have like ideas about sequels and I realize like Rey is trending and I'm like, okay, I'll make a Rey video. It'll probably do well, but I'm definitely passionate about this topic. That's one thing. But if I make a video, I'm like, I don't feel right doing this. It's going to do well. I can't do that. And I think if you go into YouTube, just sticking to who you are and what you believe, it might take longer, but people will notice. You know, YouTube to me is like a relationship. I try to add a lot of value for my viewer, and they respond. You know, it's funny. People ask me that, and we might get into this later, but the mascot of my channel is Claude, which is a weird character. He's in the Rise of Skywalker for 34 seconds. I've timed it, 34 seconds. And I don't have him with me right now, but I even bought a cardboard cutout of Claude. Yes, he's an iconic staple of your background. I mean, he just, sometimes I look at him like, I'm more like looking at Claude. I'm like, why is he there? But anyway, continue. So I'm just like, people ask me, they're like, why do you have Claude? I'm like, I want somewhat of a mascot for my channel, right? I want, when people watch The Rise of Skywalker, you'll be like, oh, that's Claude, you know, the gold man. So it's just like, I kind of use Claude to like somewhat, I'm not say build a community, but like, I use the phrase the Claude Squad.
Yeah.
I say unite the Claude Squad. And it's nice seeing people in the comments like saying hashtag unite the Claude Squad, because it feels like it's more of a community, right? It feels like these are people who they support me on almost a daily basis, and I love making content for them that I think they will enjoy. And most of the time it appears that it matters a lot to them, and just creating that community. And I hope it grows and continues to grow, but just people I know that I'm making a difference. Again, it's the best feeling.
It's a nice, gratifying feeling at the end of the day, knowing that something you made a difference in somebody's life. And a lot of your content has that sort of vibe to it. I mean, what you talked about, where like, you know, if you make content that has your heart in it, that you put your soul into, that's something you really believe in, it comes out. I mean, it really does. It's something that like you can almost tell in someone's voice, or you can see when they're on camera. Like, it's something that they just really actually genuinely believe in. Where do you get your inspiration from? Like, where does that heart and soul come from? Like, is it all inside, or are there people that you look at and you're like, wow, like totally agree there, or like I really want to gear my content so that, you know, it looks like this, or like, is there any inspiration for you, or is it all just in here?
It's a good question. I'm not going to mention any names, but I feel like a lot of my motivation are from people in the Star Wars community that I think are toxic people and make constant hate videos.
Interesting.
They like, I'll see them, and someone on Twitter too, like they'll make a tweet saying, oh, I find this so stupid. I'm trying to think of a good example. Oh, like the bombs from the bomber in The Last Jedi dropping through space. Like, oh, this is so stupid. There's no gravity in space. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make a video now. And I'm like, I think that's ridiculous, and I'm gonna explain why. Or sometimes, you know, I'll see someone tweet. It's also the other way too. I'll see someone tweet like, oh, I love Rey. Like, we're just gonna appreciate Rey right now. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm just gonna make a video about why I think Rey on Tatooine is a good idea. And I'm never gonna lie. I'm never gonna make a video that I disagree with, but I'm gonna try and act like I do. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of Palpatine's Return of the Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
And I see a lot of people in the comments saying that, it ties the saga nicely together. And I'm glad people think that way. I don't see it that way. So I'm never going to make a video that's like, oh, why Palpatine The Rise of Skywalker was amazing. Even though I could make an argument, I don't genuinely believe that. Right. And I think it will show. Could I fake it? Sure. But I want to make topics that I genuinely believe. And is there some exaggeration sometimes? Sure. But at the core of these topics and these ideas, I know I believe in it. Like, right before we started recording this, I finished a script. I'm going to talk about Broom Boy from The Last Jedi, like that ending scene. What a great video this is going to be. Like, I was talking with my friend, and he's like, I don't get the end of the movie. Like, is the kid like set up for a future movie? Are we going to see him? And I was like, all right, I'll make a video. Yeah. So I just finished, and I genuinely think that ending scene is brilliant. Yeah. For many reasons. So it's like, it doesn't feel like work to me. You know, something that's concerning is I spend a lot of time on YouTube, and sometimes it does feel like work, which is what I don't want. But when if there's something I'm actually really passionate about, then it's not going to feel like work, and I'm not going to get burned out. I think that's something that's so important. Like, could I make sorry, ask your question. No, go ahead. No, absolutely. Go ahead. Like, could I make a video like when John Boyega came out and criticized Disney recently? Not saying he's right or wrong, but could I have made a video saying like, oh, John Boyega's right, they ruined Finn and they screwed over his character? I could have made that. Would it have done well? Probably. But it's not something I genuinely believe, and I don't think it will result in just building a better community. Like, I totally get that. It's not something that you feel in your heart. Exactly. I totally get there are topics that come up in the Star Wars community that are inflammatory and controversial and all of those words, but there are some topics that you just like, you see other people getting riled up about, and like, sure, like you can understand it, but it doesn't hit you. Like, it's not like something that you're fired up about. And
It's exactly what you said. Could I make a video on John Boyega hating Disney? And will it do well? Absolutely. I could absolutely make that video, but it's going to be fake. It's going to be half-assed because I don't believe it. Like, it's not something that I feel in my heart.
Exactly.
I totally get that.
I think that's if someone wants to be, if someone who's listening to this wants to be a content creator or some kind, just you can't be fake. You really, because if you try to just do things, if you wake up in the morning, you're like, okay, I want to make a video. Let's see which video is going to get me the most money. It will work. It might, but I don't believe it's good for your soul, and you'll get burned out, and then you'll be looking back at your work and be like, am I really proud of this? Like, that's one of my biggest fears, that like at the end of the day, whatever, like sometimes I'll just be sitting down, I'll be listening to music, and I'll just open my channel, just look at my videos, and just be like, am I proud of this work? And I can say I am. Are there some videos I think I could have done better? Sure. But like I just knowing that people have made comments, like there's this one comment that really touched me. And it was like, things have been really rough for me recently. I think they talked about like a family member dying or something. And they're like, your videos just really are just helping me get through it. It's a small thing. And I'm like,
God, that's nice.
It's nice. I feel like the time that I've put in to make these videos, it pays off, and it makes it worth it. I know we said this before, but I just really want to emphasize that.
No,
how great
it's the right thing to emphasize. It's absolutely the right thing to say. I will question you on this though. You talk about how sometimes YouTube can feel like work, and you don't want it to feel like work. You want it to feel like it's a passion project. You know, it's something that you really believe in. Do you feel like you find YouTube's like unhealthy sometimes? Like you feel like sometimes like it's time to step away. You ever feel like that?
It depends. In a sense, I know people sometimes talk about, you know, how the Star Wars community can be toxic and stuff like that, and sometimes it just makes you want to take a break. Yeah, I don't think that will ever happen to me, just because I know what kind of fan I am, and I choose to surround myself with people that I know have somewhat of a similar mindset as me, not in terms of opinions, but mindset about just the way you choose to treat other people. Right. So in terms of that, like I don't think I would get. I know this is mostly Twitter, but same thing with YouTube. I don't think it's unhealthy in that sense. But YouTube can be unhealthy. Sometimes, you know, I'll be making a video and there'll be some friends I want to hang out, and I'll be like, yeah, YouTube's fun, but I do need to make sure my priorities are straight. At the end of the day, friends and family are the most important thing. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes I'll be like, okay, you know, I have this video, but I just need to focus on other things right now. So I think it can be unhealthy if you let it get unhealthy. I think if you just make sure you have your priorities straight and you make sure you're doing something you really love and you're not doing it because you want to be famous or because you want money, then I think it's something that's healthy. Because at the end of the day, it's a hobby. I'm meeting people. Like this conversation we're having, like this is great. I'm meeting new people and I'm having wonderful conversations. And I've had the same experience with many other people that I didn't know 11 months ago.
And here we are.
In that aspect, I think YouTube can be very healthy. I think this experience, just meeting other people and how they think, has made me a better person. So my YouTube experience has been mostly positive, and you can't let it get to you either. Like with my Mary Sue video, there's, you know, I talk about there's a lot of these great comments that really mean a lot, and then you get the negative comments. You know, the ones. I'm not saying the ones that criticize your work, because if someone just says I disagree with you, but good vid, that's not saying oh you're wrong. And on my Mary Sue video, like 10 comments, people just said simp. I'm like, okay, you just really, you can't let it get to you. And I'm so grateful it doesn't.
No, it's a blessing to have that quality, because there are so many people that do let it, that do let their comments affect them. And we know those people. I mean, we see their videos. And I will say this, I think YouTube being unhealthy has a direct relationship to how much YouTube you ingest. Right. Like I'm sure you and I both ingest a lot of Star Wars YouTube. We see a lot of other channels. We watch a lot of other channels. I think there is a relationship there between how much you ingest and how much, you know, how healthy it is at the end of the day. Because I think if you really get into the nitty gritty down in the bottom of the barrel of Star Wars Twitter, I mean, or Star Wars YouTube, I should say, and Star Wars Twitter as well, there can be some there can be some really, really tough opinions down there. Some tough things to swallow. You're like, oh my God, how did you miss that? And I think that's where I fall into sometimes is taking that sort of mentality where I'm like, oh my God, how did you miss that in the movie? Like the Broom Boy argument actually is fun for me because people like, people will have that same thing where it's like, what are they setting up here? Where is that character? Like, what's he doing? He wasn't in The Rise of Skywalker. And you're like, you're totally missing the point. Well, and that kind of stuff bothers me. Is that stuff that like, does that kind of bother you, or is it go back to the thing where you're like, okay, I need to make a video about this. Like I need to inform people.
I think it depends. Like if in that case, for example, if someone just doesn't understand the scene, it doesn't bother me. I'd say it's just something like I want to not educate, but just explain my thoughts and why I think it really works. Sometimes there's topics that do bother me, like the bombs dropping in space.
The bomb, that's another one. Like I'm just like, how can we be talking about this?
The one thing that I'm really passionate about is when people say movies are objective. Okay. Like I just think that's wrong.
It is.
So like
wrong.
that's something like that somewhat bothers me, and that's like a catalyst for that kind of video. But sometimes I'll explain like why some aspect about Rey. I can't think of one off the top of my head that I know people will disagree with me or someone might not understand, but I think it's important to make it known that what you're saying isn't fact. Like, I think Rey's a great character, but if you disagree, you're not wrong.
No, absolutely not.
So I think that's also important. And also, if someone just might not understand, just explain your point of view in the best way that you can, the most educated way that you can. And if they understand your view and they disagree, that's perfectly fine. Someone comments my video saying, hey, man, I still really disagree with you. I still think Rey's a very, very bad character, but good vid. I'll say thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for giving my video a chance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Has YouTube changed you at all? Has it changed your outlook on the franchise? The more you ingest, the more you do YouTube. Have you had a change between before you started YouTube and after? Do you see yourself in a different Star Wars mindset than you were then?
Let's see. Has it changed my outlook on the Star Wars? I'd say somewhat. Maybe it's changed a lot on the way I look at, I think, the community.
Okay.
Because you see a lot of people, they dislike a lot of what Disney's done. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like on Twitter mostly, just seeing that there are a lot of people that love the sequels just as much as me, and if not more. It's made me a little more appreciative. Like that, like if I watch a reaction video of someone who watches the sequels for the first time and they love it, it just makes me more optimistic that these movies will be beloved in the future. And I think they will, just like the prequels are now.
Yeah.
So maybe it hasn't changed my outlook on the franchise itself, but maybe the way I consume the franchise and the way I look at the community, it's definitely changed that.
Yeah, I totally agree. The way I consume stories, the way I look at stories has definitely changed since I started.
Yeah, and one thing that's actually very recent. I used to do these watch parties. I did them for the first 3 episodes of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And I remember when I watched the 3rd one, there was a lot of stuff I missed, and I didn't feel like I was getting the full experience, because when you're reacting to something, I always have my eye on like the chat and how people are reacting. So then when the 4th episode came out this past Friday, I'm just like, I don't want to do a watch party because I feel like it's hindering my experience. Yeah. And that first time experience is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So like I want at the end, I don't want to make Star Wars ever not fun. I'm not sure I'll do watch parties anymore. I don't want to say never. Something like the holiday special, that's one thing, because it's fun. Like something like The Mandalorian, I'm just like, I just want to sit down, lay in my bed, turn on the TV, have a glass of water, and just enjoy Star Wars for 40 minutes to an hour. The reason why I love Star Wars, it makes you feel like you're somewhere else. I don't want to, when I watch Star Wars, I don't want to have to be worried about other people and how they're reacting to my reaction. So that's maybe one way that changed my outlook on the franchise itself, is to be more appreciative of the story. Yeah. And aspects like that. So I'd say that's one thing that's changed.
No, I definitely agree with that. And then, reviews and reactions, I do them on the channel as well. I think we've all been down that route where we consume Star Wars and we're thinking about, what can I say about this on YouTube? I think we've all been down there, especially with The Mandalorian. A lot of us have. And it does hinder your experience. It is like, it's kind of in the back of your head, and it's not a true sit down and let me just relax and, you know, have a drink and watch Star Wars. You're absolutely right. It's an interesting paradigm. I've never even thought about it that way. You've kind of enlightened me here. This is
that's the great thing about discussion. You learn new things,
and that's absolutely right. And that's probably one of the coolest things, I think. And you've definitely agreed here, is that one of the coolest things about starting Star Wars YouTube, Star Wars Twitter, Star Wars social media is meeting other people that love it as much as you do. It's absolutely one of the perks.
I've learned a lot of things. I do this other series on this other channel where we just talk about, we're talking about all the movies and just our thoughts and like what we love about it and what we think is underrated. And one of the people mentioned to me how in Attack of the Clones and the Phantom Menace, how there's certain shots of Obi-Wan that you can clearly tell are like reshoots because like the hair might look fake or like his beard might look not good. I've seen Attack of the Clones so many times and I've just never noticed.
And there you go.
And then another thing I pointed out to one of my friends, you know, when it's a very brief moment, but when in Attack of the Clones, when Jango Fett fights Obi-Wan, like he hits his head on the door of the of Slave One. It's kind of like like he thought that's how Boba Fett got the dent in his helmet. And I was like, I don't think that's true because there was that unfinished Clone Wars episode where Boba Fett fought Cad Bane, and that's how he got the dent. Now it's not canon, but it was supposed to be canon at some point. So if that's how he got the dent in his helmet there, that means that he didn't get the dent in Attack of the Clones. And he's like, wow, you learn something new every day.
Absolutely. It's almost therapeutic in a way, right? Like it's almost like, I think Star Wars is so obviously so broad. I mean, the fandom is massive, probably bigger than almost any other fandom. I think it's safe to say Star Wars has this absolutely massive cult following. But I think when you get onto conversations like this, or conversations on Twitter or in your comment section, it's almost therapeutic because you're like, wow, I'm talking about Star Wars in depth with somebody else that also has a lot of knowledge. You know, it's not something that you can do a lot, at least for me, it's not something that you can do like with your family. Like, it's like, it feels like something that like you have to have a sort of a 1-to-1 ratio experience with. And that I think is one of the coolest parts about this sort of community that we have got going now.
Yeah. And I think that's just the great thing about Star Wars, you know, just, it's funny, you know, I tell my parents, I'm like, yeah, I make YouTube videos about Star Wars. And they're like, is that many people like listen to you talk about Star Wars? I'm like, yeah, it's just so much fun having these conversations with people. And at the end of the day, that's just the great thing about Star Wars.
Absolutely. I want to talk to you about future YouTube videos, future plans, my man. Spill the beans.
Funny. Last night, I just didn't know what videos I had planned for this week. Obviously, like something Mandalorian related, but I don't plan ahead that much.
Really?
Like I have a video coming out tomorrow, so tomorrow I already have the video finished. My thoughts on the holiday special. It's a very short video. I'm currently working on a video talking about Broom Boy. That's probably gonna come out Wednesday. I think I'm gonna do a video like a Thanksgiving special, just where I say for each Star Wars movie and show I'm grateful because of this. It's a great feeling. Like after that, I mean, The Mandalorian comes out Friday. Ahsoka is probably will be in it. So I'll probably make something on Ahsoka.
Okay.
Like after that, I don't know.
Do you ever have these ideas that just like rattle around in your head for months and months and months? Like that's how I feel sometimes. I'm like, I've had like 3 or 4 ideas that like have just gotten trampled over because, you know, The Mandalorian comes out or some news comes out or something comes out. And I'm like, oh, I got to put that on the back burner. I always have like 3 or 4 of those. Do you feel that same thing?
Yeah. I definitely have videos that have been in my mind and I just haven't made yet. Like there's one I know is going to be a very hot topic. It's going to be like why I don't think the sequels have a political agenda. You know, people love to say that. And I think it's nonsense. So it's like a video I've had in mind. I haven't done it yet. I'll probably do it soon. I have other videos too. Just like, you know, ranking my favorite characters. Yeah. Talking about that. So some ideas, but in terms of like big picture plans, I don't really have anything. You know, I'm just, at the end of the day, I'm just a guy makes videos explaining why I love certain aspects of Star Wars. And if there's something that I dislike or I'm critical of, I usually try and explain what I think could have been done to make it better, or I'm using it in comparison to explain why I think another aspect of Star Wars did it really well.
Yeah.
Like I talked about recently that the fan service in The Mandalorian, and I think it's done really well in The Mandalorian.
Yes.
And I think there are many parts of the sequels where I don't think it was done well.
Right.
So I kind of try and be critical, but in a constructive way. I
have to praise you on your Mandalorian video, because you and I seemingly at the same time had the same idea. We were both like, wow, this Mandalorian thing, this is kind of good. I want to make a video. And I had it in my head, and I'm scrolling through Twitter, and lo and behold, here's the gold man comes up out of nowhere. He's like, hey, I got this new video. Why the Mandalorian's so great? I was like, this guy, I just wanted to put this video out. But I have to praise you on your Mandalorian video. Absolutely fantastic content. I mean, just
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Video. But in any case, we've been talking for a while. I think it's time we start wrapping this up. But the gold man, hey man, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
This has been absolutely fantastic. And like we just said, just a cathartic experience to talk to another fellow Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I really appreciate these discussions, and they're a lot of fun. And I hope we continue this in the future.
Absolutely. And you know what? I hope that I can do a collaboration with you one of these days. I hope we can get together maybe and do a fun video. I won't make it as cliche as making it about Ray or somebody that you're probably tired of hearing about already. So we'll come up with something, I promise. And we'll get together and we'll butt heads on something.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Well, my man, I hope you continue making fantastic YouTube content. I'll see you out on the internet. And why don't you leave us with some places that people can find you if they want to follow you around?
So on Twitter, you can find me at thegoldman25. That's really the only social media I'm on besides YouTube. And then on YouTube, I am The Goldman. So go subscribe to me if you haven't already. Also, make sure you're subscribed to this guy because he also makes great content. Wow. I assume if you're watching this, you're subscribed to him. But just in case if you aren't, if you're someone who follows me and you just heard this video and you're watching it, make sure you subscribe to Talking with My Hans. He makes great videos. So definitely subscribe to him too.
Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate it. And of course, you can find myself, Talking with My Hans, on YouTube and at Talk with My Hans _ on Twitter. There's a 15 character limit. We were so close to getting Talking with My Hans on Twitter, but that was not in the cards. So anyway, again, thank you so much, The Goldman, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for watching who have made it this far into the conversation. I hope you enjoyed this. We do fan reviews all the time on the channel. I try to get these out once or twice a month, and there are plenty of great Star Wars fans out in the world, and the Goldman is just one of many. This has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. Once again, thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. Please leave a comment. You absolutely know I appreciate all of those things. We just talked about it for a whole hour here on the show. So thank you once again. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.